Et voila, perfect. Welcome to the Housing Commission's April 3rd, 2023 Special Housing Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in the downtown conference room and in person. I will call the meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. I would like to introduce staff and Housing Commission members present. Myself, Chair Bigelow, Heather Leach, Commissioner Jacqueline Campos, Commissioner Adriana Walker, and also present, we have Management Analyst Adam Patterson and Assistant Community Development Director Deanna Chow. Adam, would you please provide instructions to the Housing Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Bigelow and members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the April 3rd special meeting of the Housing Commission, and thank you for attending. At this time, we ask that the virtual members of the Housing Commission please remain on screen for the duration of the meeting. You will control your own webcams and microphones. Staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the Housing Commission. Commissioner Merriman.
Yes.
I don't know I didn't get a chance to look up. So give us 1 minute, but for being virtual, we need more information. Just give us a minute.
For Brown Act stuff. That is, I just said that and it's going on public record.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, let's one moment here while we just pull up.
From the city attorney.
Yeah, while we can get some clarification.
Where are you zooming in from, Nevada?
The Willows in Menlo Park.
Nice. The home office, got it. Okay.
Yeah, if we can just one moment just to make sure that we have Commissioner Merriman participating with one of the clauses under, I believe it's AB 2449.
I'm looking too. I got a notice about that.
We sure did.
Okay, so.
And for members of the public who are joining us, thank you for your patience as we navigate this new law, making sure that we reconcile our attendance with it and behave accordingly. Okay, Judy.
So Commissioner Merriman, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. So under AB 2449, there are circumstances in which remote participation can be allowed absent of the traditional Brown Act requirements where we notice participation off-site. So there are a couple of instances where this can be allowed. So one is what we call sort of the just cause, if there is something related to childcare or caring of others in your immediate family, an illness. That is one allowance, and the other is sort of an emergency circumstance. Or there might be a medical emergency in which participation can be allowed outside of the on-site location. Are you participating via one of those allowances.
Yes, family illness.
Great. Thank you for joining us this evening. So we can proceed. So under Just Cause, then we have Commissioner Merriman participating remotely.
And I like your bright sunny background, Commissioner Merriman. Very spring-like.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you again for all of your patience while we navigate AB 2449. And for members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on an item on tonight's agenda, after I call for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, for virtual participants, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9. For those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring it to us. Under regular business, the Housing Commission receives informational presentations in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. Are there any clarifying questions from the Housing Commission on item C1, which is approving the minutes from the Housing Commission regular meeting on February 1st, 2023, before taking public comment on the item?
Nope.
No clarifying questions. Perfect. Then, Adam, do we have any public comment on our February 1st meeting?
For members of the public who wish to provide public comment on item C1, for virtual participants, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *. For those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring to my desk. And we do not appear to have any public comment.
Okay, then moving right along, the item is open for Housing Commission discussion or motions, should people choose to make those.
A motion to accept February's meeting.
Perfect, thank you, Commissioner Walker and Campos. All right, then, Adam, can we get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner Merriman,
Yes,
Vice Chair Gwynn, absent. Commissioner Pimentel, absent. Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Chair Bigelow.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Perfect. Okay, then we can move right along to item C2. Thanks for making that quick and speedy, friends. Reviewing and recommending 2 revised below market rate housing agreements for previously approved projects located at 506 to 558 Santa Cruz Avenue and 1125 Merrill Street and 1162 to 1170 El Camino Real. Assistant Community Development Director Deanna Chow will introduce the item, and then I will happily lead the discussion after the introduction.
Great, thank you, Chair Bigelow. As Chair Bigelow mentioned, I'm Deanna Chow, the Assistant Community Development Director. Joined here with me this evening remotely are the project applicants who can provide assistance with any questions that the commission has this evening. But I'll just provide a brief overview of the project that's outlined in the staff report. So before the commission this evening are 2 BMR agreements. These are revisions, essentially new BMR agreements, but revisions to 2 previously approved BMR agreements for 2 projects. So one is already built. This was approved back in 2018 by the Planning Commission. It is currently like where Phil's is located in Little Sky Bakery. It's a mixed use development consisting of retail, office, and residential uses. There's a total of 9 units in that development. And just for clarity, there are actually 3 separate projects that reviewed comprehensively as one. So we refer to that as the Santa Cruz Avenue project. Separately, the same applicant came forward with another development, this is an all residential projects and 9 units at 1162 El Camino Real. Some may remember the former Feldman's bookstore. That is the site of this particular development. There's no construction that has happened yet. The building has been demolished, but it has not yet been constructed. what occurred as part of the Santa Cruz Avenue project was a sort of a creative approach to the BMR requirement. It looked at providing either an on-site unit, 2 off-site units, which would be more than the required 10% of the BMR requirement, or payment of an in lieu fee, with the understanding that this would be resolved 2 years following the completion of the development. That development was finalized 2 years ago, or approximately 2 years ago, come this June. And so the applicant, not having the 1162 El Camino Real project built yet, is seeking an additional timing, an additional 2 years to complete that project and or pay the fee depending upon the outcome of the construction of that project. So what is before the commission this evening, which is a recommendation to the planning commission, nothing changes about the 2 projects themselves, but it essentially take the responsibility of the 2 BMR units from the Santa Cruz Avenue project for the payment of the in lieu fee, and it would be the obligation of the 1162 El Camino Real project. So that in itself requires 1 unit, with the 2 that would be offsite units or transferred from the Santa Cruz project. Then the 1162 project would be responsible for 3 BMR units. 1 would be at very low, that would be a studio unit, and the 2 remaining would be a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom at low income. So that was previously supported by the Planning Commission and the Housing Commission. And so those sizes and income categories are proposed to remain. So it's primarily looking at transferring the obligation to the 1162 project and continuing with the extension for an additional 2 years, with an option if the city manager could extend it for additional year if they're making progress, but just didn't hit that 2-year mark, then there's option to extend it for an additional year. So that is what's before the commission this evening. Happy to answer any questions. And again, the applicant, I believe, is also available to answer any questions. Yeah.
So just to clarify, they want to transfer responsibility or obligation to 1162
yes.
with the request of an extension from the city manager.
So, well, the 2-year extension would require the planning commission action. So a housing commission recommendation under the initial 2-year extension. So it'd be 2 years from the effective date of the agreement. And then if after 2 years, there, say there's momentum happening, but they're not quite done with the construction, there could be an additional 1-year extension by the city manager. So it would not come back to the housing commission or planning commission. It could be done administratively by the city manager. But the initial 2-year period was sort of the meat of this agreement, which is what is being asked of like the planning commission and the housing commission for recommendation.
Okay.
And if the units are not built, then it would be a payment of
The
a
in lieu
lieu fee
right.
to the BMR fund. Yes.
Okay.
So it sounds like this is something that the staff is recommending, that approval of the transfer of, I'm going to reiterate what you just said to make sure I understand it. Transfer of their obligation to build 2 BMR units on the Santa Cruz Merrill Street project and transfer it to 1162 El Camino Real. And that would give us 3 BMR units. Just for my, I'm not, because I'm still learning about how all of this works. Does this how often can this developer take their obligation and have it be different?
So I apologize, I should probably clarify this, that arrangement already existed in the original agreement. So the applicant was the same for the Santa Cruz project as the 1125. So in the original BMR agreement for the Santa Cruz project, it provided for that offsite
Provision.
yes, it allowed it. And so it's just confirming that because this is already 506 is the Santa Cruz Avenue
Right.
projects are already built, so there are not BMR units
Right.
there. It's just making sure that
They're
folks
extending
understand
what we're doing.
the requirement will be met at the 1162
Oh.
El Camino Real.
And what we're voting on is extending the deadline. So, because they would be due to either pay a fee or come up with a unit.
Yeah, come
in
to
June.
Yeah, and it's not developed, so that would not be the outcome. It would be the payment of the in lieu fee. So in trying to produce units, because I know that has been, having the production of units has been desirable to allow for that additional time period to see if those units could come to fruition.
Sure, okay, that makes sense.
Just as a clarifying question, do we have any more information on why they didn't hit those dates?
And maybe that's the applicant might be able to help
Chime in?
chime in on the timelines. Yes, good question.
I would so appreciate that.
Yeah, good evening. Chase Rapp here, developer of 506, 556, and 1125 Merrill, as well as 1162 El Camino. If we take a step back and we look at when we first started this project, we acquired the 1162 El Camino site in 2018 and formally submitted for entitlements in 2019. It took us a little bit over 2.5 years to receive entitlements on that project, finally receiving them in 2021. Having already worked on construction drawings during that time, within months after February of 2021, submitted for building permit, and we are still waiting to get our building permit. So we have still continued to spend money. We've still continued to be committed to the project, but we are just continuing to work on it, and we have not pulled building permits yet. And so internally, we're still trying to get there. And now we're up against a timing deadline, and we've had to hire an outside consultant to calculate the in lieu fee. And, as our own company, we have to make sure that we understand that fee, but we like to be committed and build these units. So we're now here today looking for an extension.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any other clarifying questions before we go to public comment?
Pretty clear to
No.
me.
Okay, great. Then I would love to hear if we have any public comment on this item.
For members of the public who wish to provide public comment on item C2, for virtual participants, please engage the raise hand feature on the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9. For those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring it to my desk.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, fair enough. Then we can move on to opening up the item for Housing Commission discussion.
Seems pretty straightforward. They ran up against things out of their control, pulling
Yeah,
permits and waiting for entitlements, so.
Mhm. Fair.
Is the building the units, is that better than them paying the in lieu fee, like speaking, like what our goals are for housing in the Menlo Park?
Always such a good question. Can I take that one?
Yeah. Thank you.
So the in lieu fee is. I'm walking it back a second. Essentially, in the housing crisis of the Bay Area, right, it's at least a 50-year-old problem. And we know that any big gnarly problems are going to have more than one solution, right? So the in lieu fee is one solution that usually developers leverage. So they take the public funds from the in lieu fee and they can kind of use those to prove that the jurisdiction is into supporting the development of an 100% affordable property rather than a property with a few BMR units here or there. And so routinely, and Nevada, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that the argument is often boiled down to 20% of 0 units built is still 0. And so it's great when we actually have units that are built. And also, traditionally, below market rate units serve a different income level than 100% affordable properties. Though we are expanding that some with trying to make sure that we serve more people and different income levels with that. So that, okay. So yeah, I think we as a housing commission have generally said, we want the units. Because we need units. And it certainly helps with housing element and regional housing needs assessment and things like that. But the truth is we need them both. So what?
And I just might add that looking many years ago, redevelopment agencies owned land, and it was easier for cities to do public land deals for 100% affordable housing communities. Now, although there is still some public land that can be strategized to produce this type of housing, it is not as common. And so these ordinances and policies, BMR or inclusionary ordinances, however you want to discuss, however you want to characterize them, continue to be a way that affordable housing is being created, and there needs to be some flexibility in that ordinance so that it's commercially reasonable, and that the I would always caution to not be too prescriptive about which route you go, because it can really limit feasibility, and that goes back to Chair Bigelow's 20% of zero is zero. So
Yeah, fair points all. I just want to say that I really appreciate that one of the BMR units is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom.
That's great.
I'm very used to BMR units being studios and 1-bedrooms. So I really like seeing BMR units that can house our families as well as our single populations. So it's really cool, and thank you for that. All right, so do folks have any initial thoughts, motions, further discussion, that what is coming up for people?
I think it's pretty straightforward, having heard getting further information from the city and from the developer. It seems pretty straightforward it seems really important to get the units built. I mean, the more I'm on the Housing Commission, the more I appreciate how hard it is to get these projects actually to fruition, just all the different moving parts. So I think I would be in favor of approving the extension.
Do you want to make a motion?
Are we in motion time? Have we done, is there public comment?
We asked for public comment and there wasn't any.
Okay,
so
good. Okay, then I move to approve the staff recommendation and approve the extension.
I second.
cool. Thank you, Commissioners Leach and Walker. I don't know if we can do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Campos,
Yes.
Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner Merriman,
yes.
Vice Chair Gwynn, absent. Commissioner Pimentel, absent. Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Chair Bigelow.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Hooray, unanimous BMR votes. Okay.
Thank you all
Um,
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for
for
your
being
input.
here and explaining.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we are moving right along to the establishment of an ad hoc subcommittee for community outreach. And in the past, when we have had ad hoc committees, they kind of existed for a brief period of time, the length of the project, really. And they were created so somebody could spearhead the project and have support from other commission members. And then that subcommittee would come back and present to the Housing Commission what their findings were, what their progress was, things like that, without running into any issues with Brown Act stuff. So I think it's important to establish a community outreach subcommittee, given that our work plan said that that's what we were focusing on. And also given that it feels really important to make sure that we use our time and energy to push this forward, particularly while housing and planning are still working so hard to make sure we get staff. So I think this is one thing that we can do to help to push that forward. Are there any commission members who are interested in being on a community outreach subcommittee?
Clarifying question. Is this off of the previous meeting we had discussing the outreach we were gonna have? And like, I love outreach, so, you
Cool.
know, resources and
Awesome.
tenants' rights and where you can find. Yeah, I am interested.
Love it, love it, love it, love it.
Awesome.
Okay, perfect.
I could be interested as well,
Okay.
but I think it's,
Generally, a subcommittee is about 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
So is anybody else interested, or are we gonna leave it with Commissioner Walker and Leach?
Commissioner Campos.
I'm interested. Cool. But what is the time commitment? Because I'm also extremely busy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is what you make of it. So
I have a little bit more time right now, so I could, you know, do some of the legwork or the admin work if that needs to be done.
I'm good for market. Well, I'm good for marketing and rallying of the crowd.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
love it,
You
love
can-
it.
I mean, I can make time as well.
So what I've seen happen, I've been on subcommittees where they met during lunch every week for an hour. And I've been on subcommittees where they met once a quarter or things like that. So really, it's about how much work you think there is to do and how you want to tackle it.
Can I make one,
Amendment, please.
not amendment, and I love the enthusiasm here, and I know outreach is something that the commission wanted to make a priority in their work plan, and I know as part of our housing element, we wanted to make sure that outreach and engagement is also really robust, because I think we do a lot of great things, and we just want to make sure that those resources are available for folks, or the things that we aren't doing. We want to make sure that we put that into the things that we want to do for our community. Just in terms of like numbers, depending upon if we get a full commission of 7, I just hesitate on this, like 3 would not be,
Mhm.
would be half of the commission, which would be like almost a quorum. So I just want to be cognizant of that. Like, I think more the merrier, like, it doesn't mean that the subcommittee can't bring it to the full commission for conversation, but just hesitate, like if the commission's at 6, then 3 would be too many.
Yeah. It
So-
it would run into a Brown Act
Yeah.
issue, absolutely. So,
Do we need to table that or?
no, I think that it's just a decision between the 3 of you who feels like you have capacity, feels like you have energy, time, and interest, and recognizing that this may change, right, in the future. And I think that it can be something that waxes and wanes. So I hear the request for keeping it at 2, which I think makes sense.
Or keep it at 3 and wait till, the council, so I mean, like I said, waxes and wane, maybe like.
Right,
it can be fluid, but understanding like who would, potentially step aside if it was only.
Got
six.
it. Okay.
I don't want to dissuade any participation. This is great.
So Adriana, I'm hearing like a lot of fire and a lot of excitement from you. So I love
If
that.
it comes down to it, I could step back and let
Okay.
Adriana, but I would, am very available to help as
Okay.
well.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Jackie?
I am willing to help. I'm also very enthusiastic about community outreach. I'm just a little like at capacity, but I can be there for any support that you need.
Well, definitely take care of yourself. So like if you're feeling like it's too much, that's totally reasonable. And also it can change in the future. So, you could maybe keep it at you two for now. And then once we have, maybe next month, we can check in and see if, yeah,
That sounds good.
great. Awesome. Thank you all for your energy. Commissioner Merriman, I know you're on mute, but I just wanted to check in with you about how you're feeling about community outreach. Are you at capacity right now?
I am excited that we have many other commissioners who seem ready to pick up this charge. Thank
That
you.
is such a beautiful diplomatic answer and I love it. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was checked in with, and we can talk to Commissioner Pimentel and Vice Chair Nguyen at a later date. But I think that for the most part, it would be y'all spearheading the renter protection kind of workshops that we were talking about doing, and also working with kind of civic engagement, how to be part of this process, because I think what we have found over the last few years is that there's a very involved portion of the population who's very well informed and amazing at chiming in and letting us know, but not everybody has that same capacity, level of engagement, interest, or awareness of how to participate. So I think we can definitely do more and make it more accessible for other folks, because if we are speaking to a subset of the population, that's not representative government to me. And so I would like to share what we do more broadly. Perfect. Okay. Great. So I don't think there's any action to be taken on this item. So we're just establishing the ad hoc, and three of you can talk to each other and calendar each other about when you want to meet up, when you're available, and what work you want to take on.
Okay. We have to complete the housing workshops for tenants' rights by June, right?
I believe so. That's what we said we
Yeah.
wanted to do
Yes,
on,
that
in the
is.
work plan.
Okay.
And I think we said we were hopeful to do one in April and one in May, because May is Affordable Housing Month. But I think given that we are in April now, that might be tough. I know that most nonprofits have about a 6-week development plan, just so that they can get little bits done throughout, and it's not such a huge undertaking all at once. So maybe planning something for May, or if you guys want to do the end of April, that's a possibility too, just seeing where the energy is. Okay. All right, then, since there is no action to be taken, we can move on to our informational item. Did we do public comments? Oh, no, I'm so sorry, public comments. But I would love to hear if there are any public comments on the idea of an ad hoc subcommittee for community outreach. So do we have any public comments on this item?
For members of the public who wish to provide public comment on item C3, virtual participants, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9. For those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring to my desk. We do have one public comment.
Wonderful.
Marlene Santoyo. Just unmute your microphone and pull up the clock.
Hi, Commission. My name is Marlene Santoyo, and you may have already received my public comment via email, but I also wanted to take this opportunity to share out. And I'm very happy that you guys are moving forward to do a community outreach ad hoc. I work with a couple nonprofits in Menlo Park, and I'm happy to collaborate on educational workshops. We're having our first one on April 18th from 6 to 7 at the Bellhaven Branch Library in Spanish, and then on Wednesday, April 19th in English. And we're having food and childcare, and we're encouraging people to RSVP at www.tinyurl.com/mptrw. We're having legal aid of San Mateo County come and share out about tenant resources and rights. And we also want to take this as an opportunity to learn more about what gaps exist in resources and tenant rights. And I want to acknowledge that this workshop came out of doing one for, or the one that was between Bellhaven Action and Midpen Housing. It was an application assistance workshop, and it was really nice to have some of you guys as commissioners volunteer and help people apply. And in that, we heard a lot from tenants who were having questions about what was like more resources that were available, and questions about whether things that had happened to them were legal or not as tenants. And so we thought this was be a good opportunity to follow up from that workshop and share out on what is available, but also a space to hear more about the improvements that can happen. So this is just one of many, and we hope that we can collaborate more and hear from residents that don't typically show up at housing commissions. And yeah, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and for your comments, Marlene. They're so very much appreciated. And thank you for being patient with me when I forgot to go to them. I'm also happy to, in my day-to-day professional life, do renters' rights work in Palo Alto. So I'm also happy to be a resource, even if I am not on the commission anymore.
No, keep you in mind.
There you go. Okay, so now that we have established the ad hoc, now that we have heard public comment, now we can go on to the informational items. So agenda item D, reports and announcements. Do we have any individual commissioner updates? It is my last commission meeting, which I am very sad about. So I am deeply appreciative of all of the intelligence and engagement that is here routinely. And I love how much you guys care about your community. So thank you, thank you, thank you for continuing to show up. And thank you for members of the public who continue to do so as well. You're so valuable, and your comments are often so incredibly valid. And so, yeah, I'm just incredibly grateful for the 4 years. And does anybody else have any updates?
I want to thank Commissioner Bigelow for your work and guidance. I mean, it's a lot of information to take in when you're first coming here, and so it's been helpful to have people that have been steeped in this for a while.
In the
best
tea.
wishes in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I would love to, may I also chime in on the Chair Bigelow Love Fest? I definitely appreciate the perspectives that you offer, which in addition to how BMR programs, homeownership programs impact our city and your tenants' rights work, you have a really multifaceted professional view on housing that you then ring through your own lens to come up with the full spectrum of comments that you've given us over the years. I really appreciate all of that. And also in this past year, especially as we tackled the housing element, I was very happy to see that the Housing Commission had a real role in some of those meetings, particularly the joint meetings. And I believe your very first meeting that you chaired was very impressive. So thank you. And it was no small feat. So I appreciate you taking on this leadership during an important year for the city.
Well, none of it is ever done in a vacuum, and I fully believe that we are very much a team who learns and supports and grows with each other, from each other together. So again, I cannot say enough wonderful things about the people who regularly show up to these meetings. Okay, all right, so with that, I think that we have, let's see, the recommendation of future agenda items. Do we have any that folks are interested in tackling in the future?
Do we want to add something about how aspirational we're feeling about outreach? We can update
I
on that,
was
right?
thinking about that. Yeah, if we can.
Maybe just something like an update on a subcommittee update.
I think that would be really
Yeah.
wise, yeah, and helpful. Just being able to push from outside these meetings and showing up at them with information. I think it keeps all of us a little bit accountable.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. So subcommittee,
I do have a question.
yes.
Is it possible, because I was planning on attending that educational workshop just to
Mhm.
get a feel of,
Mhm.
and then kind of brainstorming like that? Is it possible for a commissioner to attend things like that? And
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I think you did with the MidPen as well, helping sign people up. So get in contact with Marlene, and I believe her information was submitted. And so you can follow up on that. And as long as there aren't 4 members of the Housing Commission at the meeting, I think that there shouldn't be a conflict.
And I think even as a general community event, I mean.
It's been publicly noticed.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I just don't talk about it.
Don't mention Fight Club. But also you can't have specific conversations about policy there.
okay.
Yeah. But sitting, listening, observing, excellent plan.
I'm planning on it as well, because this is
Perfect.
something I'm not really that familiar with. A good learning opportunity just in general.
I always think it's a great idea to check in on the NOFAs. So the notice of funds available, and see where we are with that process. I'm giving you work that I'm not going to be here for. But just having more transparency in that process, I think, is great for public outreach and education, as well as for our own education and awareness of all of the things that the Housing Commission does. Okay, any other future agenda items that there are requests for?
Are we gonna have to look at, a new vice chair? Is that something for the agenda or?
About whether or not, how the appointment process is going and things
Yeah.
like that. I think that will probably be tackled in the next, meeting. It should be at least, who is appointed, and I think the election. Yeah,
So I believe the advisory body annual appointments will be happening at the city council's second meeting in April, so that would be the 25th. And so if there are appointments made to the housing commission along with the other commissioners, then in that first meeting in May, the new person would be seated. And at that time, we could put on the agenda the selection of the chair and vice chair.
yep. Perfect. Would it be at all reasonable to request updates on the staffing process, or are we just not doing, that's you guys doing you and us just?
I can, like, when we get to the next, like, staff updates, I'm happy to.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Then you don't need to put it on a future agenda. We can talk about it now.
It might be on the future.
Both ands, I like it. Perfect. Okay, so that seems like a really great collection of things to agendize. So moving on to staff updates and announcements.
Yeah,
Do you want to go first or do it?
Go ahead, I know you had a few updates and then I can circle back to staffing.
So we did release a request for proposals for the BMR administration services, and they're due on the 21st of this month. So if you can spread the word, that would be great. Our current agreement with Huskies does expire on June 30th of this year. So we were required to release an RFP. And then there is a BMR ownership workshop tentatively scheduled for April 27th in the Bellhaven Library. That is in conjunction with Huskies. We have 2 ownership opportunities coming up, which that is related. So
Thank you. Tell me the date of the ownership workshop one more time.
April 27th.
Thank you. And the RFP is due the 21st. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Adam.
Okay, and I can give an update just briefly on staffing. So as you know, we've been fortunate to have Erin Romero sit in the interim housing manager role, and Adam's double timing and various management analyst roles. So and so we've been seeking a housing manager, and so we have had interviews. We're continuing to work through that process. So we're making our way. So I think that's probably all I can say, that we have closed the recruitment. We have gone through some interviews, and I think we'll be continuing on with in the process.
Wonderful. Do we have a timeline in mind for when you think that we'll have folks?
In the next, well, I don't know. I mean,
Sure, that's reasonable.
I was like,
That's reasonable.
Like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's still,
Okay.
a ways to go in the
process.
process. so.
Right, yeah, I'm never certain if it takes 3 months, 3 days.
Yeah, and we're also exploring other opportunities, whether it's shared housing staff. I know as part of the
Mhm.
21 Elements group, all the
Right.
cities in the San Mateo County region are exploring ideas, because everyone is in need of housing staff. And so there might be shared opportunities with housing resources. Like if we're all working on a similar topic, there might be some efficiencies gained by sharing folks to work on certain topics. So that is an idea that's being explored as well.
I certainly found it really helpful when I was doing my fellowship work with the city of Palo Alto, having that regional, having people all over the region. We were able to more quickly and efficiently push things forward, because, oh, you're at this part in the process. Can I borrow what you're doing and put it into use over here,
Yes.
and things like that? But I think that's great idea and I'm excited about it. Okay.
Nevada.
Yes, Commissioner Merriman.
I would just kind of add on to Ms. Chow's comment there about economies of scale and also in some cases really tapping into expertise that's been developed over several decades. So I am seeing, of course, more third-party consultancy, specialty consultancy shops kind of opening up in the peninsula. And some of them are really helping cities who have a bottleneck for a particular period of time come in, bring that expertise. Many of the folks on staff have, worked for 30 years or so and retired, or essentially retired former city staff members. And so not only, it's not to supplant the need of having a dedicated housing staffer, but more in the event that the city needs additional capacity, it's an avenue that now not only is a myth, the idea of getting a third party group in that could help, but actually I'm seeing that there's some folks that are really talented and helping out your surrounding cities. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yay, staff. That's what we're going for. Perfect.
Yeah, and I can just provide one other, like
Please.
upcoming agendas. I know you had identified some things that are of interest of the commission, but just one thing that I think is on our tentative calendar to bring forward is a BMR agreement for a new development, commonly referred to as 123 Independence. So it is multifamily residential and for sale townhome units. I know this has been before I think the Housing Commission previously. This is where there might be a partnership between Habitat and the Spreado organization to fulfill the townhome portion. So that is anticipated to be brought forward at the next Housing Commission meeting.
I'm excited to see that. It's a really cool idea and it worked really well in Redwood City. So see how that goes. Perfect. Does anybody else have anything else before we close out? No. Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting at 7:26 p.m. Again, thank you all for your attendance. We just